He was a genius. He was a monster, a towering figure with a mind as sharp as a blade and a heart as cold as ice. He didn't just kill, he played with death. This is the horrifying story of Edmund Kemper, the co-ed killer. And once you step into his world, there's no turning back. Edmund Kemper wasn't born a killer, or was he? Born in 1948 in Burbank, California, he was the middle child of a broken home. His father, a World War II veteran, left the family when Edmund was young, leaving him in the care of his mother, Clarnell. She was a strict, controlling woman who belittled and berated him at every turn. She locked him in the basement, away from his sisters, calling him a monster in the making. And perhaps she was right. Even as a child, he did things that sent chills down the spines of those around him. He tortured animals. He buried a pet cat alive, then dug it up just to cut off its head. He felt nothing, no remorse, no regret. And that was just the beginning. His fascination with death grew. He would play strange games with his sisters, pretending to be executed in mock hangings. He later admitted that he fantasized about killing his own mother. But before he could act on those thoughts, he got his first taste of real murder. At 15, Kemper's thirst for control became deadly. Sent to live with his grandparents on their ranch in North Fork, California, he felt isolated, trapped. One day, without warning, he grabbed a rifle and turned it on his own grandmother. A shot rang out, then another. His grandfather returned home minutes later, and Edmund shot him, too. In cold blood, he killed them both. When asked why, his answer was chilling. I just wanted to see what it felt like. Deemed too dangerous for juvenile detention, he was sent to a Atascadero State Hospital, a facility for the criminally insane. But Kemper was no ordinary inmate. He was highly intelligent, with an IQ of 145. He manipulated the psychiatrists, learned the psychological tests, and became a model prisoner. Astonishingly, after just 5 years, they deemed him rehabilitated and set him free. Now 21 years old, Kemper was released and moved back in with his mother, who was working as an administrator at a local university. But the old wounds hadn't healed. The constant verbal abuse reignited his rage. And soon, he found an outlet for his dark desires. California's highways became his hunting ground. Young women, carefree and unsuspecting, hitchhiked their way through life. And then came Kemper, a friendly face, a harmless smile. They got into his car and sealed their fate. Once the doors locked, there was no escape. Strangulation, stabbing, shooting, their bodies dismembered. Their remains, taken home as sickening trophies. From 1972 to 1973, he slaughtered at least 6 young women, picking them up from college campuses. He gained their trust, engaged them in conversation, then ended their lives in brutal fashion. But the horror didn't end there. He kept their severed heads as companions. He buried some in his mother's backyard, facing her bedroom window. Why? Because she always wanted people to look up to her, he later said. But for Kemper, the ultimate target had always been his mother. A woman he hated, a woman he blamed. April 1973, the night he'd been waiting for. She was asleep. He stood over her, hammer in hand, and then one brutal strike. And that wasn't enough. He decapitated her. He used her head for unspeakable things. He screamed at it for hours. The monster had finally come full circle. He also murdered his mother's best friend, Sally Hallett, in an attempt to cover his tracks. But something inside him had changed. The killings no longer satisfied him. He was tired. After years of killing, he did the unthinkable. He picked up the phone and turned himself in. At first, the police didn't believe him. How could they? A man this smart, this cunning, just confessing? But when they walked into his house, they realized every word was true. And the horror was worse than they ever imagined. Kemper provided detailed confessions, recounting every murder without hesitation. He even requested the death penalty, saying, "I should be tortured to death." But California had temporarily abolished capital punishment. Instead, he received 8 life sentences. But what made Kemper so dangerous wasn't just his crimes, it was his mind. He was articulate, intelligent, and highly aware of his own darkness. He spoke openly about his murders, analyzing his own actions like a scientist studying a subject. "I had a compulsion to do it," he once said. "I wish I didn't, but I did." Even in prison, Kemper continued to unsettle people. He recorded audiobooks for the blind, his deep, calm voice narrating children's stories. The idea that the same voice that recounted fairy tales once lured young women to their deaths? Terrifying. Today, Edmund Kemper sits in prison. A man who outsmarted the police, manipulated psychiatrists, and destroyed countless lives. He's no longer the predator, just an old man in a cage. But his story is a warning, because the scariest monsters don't hide under your bed. They walk among us, and sometimes they smile right at you. If this story chilled you to the bone, make sure to like, share, and subscribe for more real-life horror. And remember, not every friendly face can be trusted.